All right, so we're gonna go over IK, FK switching, right? So you have these controls right here in the arm. These are currently all FK, so we're gonna primarily pose them by rotating these around, uh, and that's pretty much all the movement you get out of them. However, if you had an action, like if he put this arm up against the door or something, right? If he was leaning against the door, and you had this pose out here like this, and let me just get this out of the way. So he had this pose right here, ready to go. And if he had his hand kind of leaning against something, like some sort of surface contacting that surface, you would, let me make sure this is a locked channel. Could be, yeah, looks like it is. Oh, it's because melee join. There you go. So if he had this up against a surface, right, and was making contact with it, now it'd be really annoying to go from this FK system of rotation, right, and then on the next frame where he slightly moves, if you had to realign that contact point again and be like, okay, how the hell do I get there? And then you'd go back and forth between those frames and be like, all right, how do I nail that contact there? Basically, what you'd need to be doing is working in IK instead, right there. So this is FK, which we went over last class, for kinematics. So it's evaluating down the chain based only on rotation. So what we need instead is this control right here to be in IK. And remember, you switch the limb controls, and this is pretty universal for most rigs. It could be on this control as well. But for these rigs that we're working with, the IK-FK switch control is on this little bad boy right there. So in switch IK-FK, if you input 0, you'll notice that it is now an IK control that I could just easily place up against that door or whatever contact point that he was making. And as long as this control is not moving, his hand, see how it's staying in that one position right there? So that's the benefit of IK. It does lead to some appeal issues in animation. You'll see lots of characters' arms hyperextend, like you see right here. Notice how it's past its like breaking point. So far, that's even pulling off the control. That's a big no-no in animation. However, if you don't want to manually line up everything with between FK and IK, right? So you got the hand into a nice pose in FK. So that's how you animate a mime. How so? Like in IK or something, like to be like pulling a rope or something. Yeah, that's oh yeah, and like pushing, definitely. Like if you were up against like a fake box and he pushed away, you would leave these controls in IK. Absolutely, yeah. So that's what IK is primarily for. However, sorry, there's like a fly in my room. It's going wild right now. Don't think I'm just insane for swatting around my room. But if I go back to this control right here and put a 1, so notice where that original contact point is. There's usually with rigs, there's like there's an automatic sort of switch between the two, right? And it will do the math to line up those controls with that arm, like those current FK controls. Now, online, I have the Anim script that comes with this rig, and you can go look at that and download it. It is under the character rigging section. So you can download that script, and I'll just do it along with you guys. Download that. I'll go show in folder, And let's see. So to properly install these scripts, what you do is, I'm just going to Control C or Command C on a Mac, and then navigate over to your Documents folder. So it's usually in somewhere on your nicely easily seen sidebar right there, and then you go to Maya. I'm going to go to 2019 because that's what we're using in this class. Then you have the scripts folder here, and you'll notice that mine's already copied into that folder. But if yours isn't, I would copy it in there, right, like this. And I'm going to need the text that is that's the name right here. The file name right there. So I'm going to click it once. I'm going to click it again, and I'm just going to Control C there after it's already in that scripts folder. And if you haven't done that before, in other words, if that was your first time downloading the script and putting it in that folder, I think we already did this earlier in the class, because otherwise my script wouldn't be in that folder right there when we were doing the rigging part of the class. So once that's in there, if that was your first time, you would have to reopen Maya. You have to just close this bad boy, reopen it up, reopen your file. Because when Maya opens, that's when it checks that scripts folder for any sort of scripts that it didn't know about before. So it'll check that on startup. But if that's your first time copying it in there, you have to reopen. So if I paste that file name into this MEL line down here, and make sure it's on MEL, not Python, because this is a MEL script, and then follow it with a semicolon, and then press enter, you'll get this little helpful bar right here. It's called Rapid Rig Anim, and it'll allow us to switch between IK and FK and maintain that position. So this arm right here, I want it to switch to IK on this frame. And so I would select left arm, because that's the character's left arm, right here, left arm. And then since we're matching the IK, because this is currently in FK, since we're matching IK to FK, we're gonna be clicking this button right there. And notice how it did the math and put our two main IK controls, the hand or the wrist and the pole vector for the elbow. It automatically just snapped it right there. And so that's gonna be pretty helpful if you guys are interacting with environment or doing some crazy stuff with your legs. So think about like a parkour video where people are just doing those like crazy twists and stuff in the air. I would probably have the anticipation for that jump be in IK, so I can just nicely move the pelvis down. And then he would do the leap. And on the frame where he leaps, that's when I would left leg, right leg, match the FK, because we want to be in FK, to the pose of the IK. So it would do that, and then you'd be good to go. So now when you rotate that pelvis around, you would have those legs nicely spinning and following that object. So those are the kind of use cases for IK versus FK and how we can easily translate, or not translate, transfer the pose of those arm FKs and the leg FKs to IK, or vice versa. IK to FK also works. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for IK to FK matching. And yeah, you can see that there's a bunch of, oh, it's a little bit terrifying. Should probably get a better, yeah, there we go, nice, not scary anymore. It has a bunch of other utility in here as well, where you can mirror your pose. That might be more helpful if you're doing a walk cycle, because you'd have your step forward pose. Probably wouldn't be as long armed like this, and be more natural. But then you can also just mirror that pose later down the timeline, and you get like some nice like even poses there, though you wouldn't want to have it completely be robotic and even throughout the walk cycle. And yeah, so this menu has a bunch of functionality, but I mainly wanted to cover IKFK stuff because you guys will run into problems with that. And trying to animate something that's like in FK, like a contact with a table or something. If you're working in FK, that's just a big mistake. So I would it's pretty important that you know IK versus FK. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for that. I will stop recording there.